First You Think is a not-for-profit ministry of the First Unitarian Church of Des Moines. Support us at ucdsm.org today.
Good morning. My name is Elaine I, she, her. Yes, I know it's a little early to be thinking about the next food fair sale. That's usually what I come up here to talk about. But today, I'm putting on a different hat. It has to do with what we do outside these walls, the walls of this church, for our greater community. Growing up in a Norwegian Lutheran church in north central Iowa, I recall our church community outreach always supporting missionaries, spreading Christianity across the globe, and the Ladies' Aid always making quilts to send to third world countries. I still have the little spiral notebook my mom used to record everything she made on the Brown Singer machine she got the year I was born, as well as the many quilts recorded after we kids left home were all the clothes she made for herself and the four of us girls. Never anything for my dad or brother, of course. After making all those clothes, there were lots of fabric scraps for quilts. They were much more utilitarian than the beautiful quilts we are familiar with today, but I digress. Here at First Unitarian, we wear a number of different hats tackling a wide variety of issues. For me personally, immigration issues have always been in the forefront of my mind and actions. Having lived in Japan for 2.5 years, I know well the frustration of not understanding the language, the culture, or how day-to-day things work. And I didn't have to find a job, a place to live, household items for my home, a means of transportation, or worry about my visa papers, as I was privileged to have someone take care of all that before I arrived. Another issue close to my heart was offering temporary housing for families in the Family Promise program that closed down 3.5 years ago now. We had an amazingly involved team assisting our guest families back into their own homes. Experiences with Family Promise enabled us to offer long-term emergency housing to an Afghan family in February of 2024. Eileen, Crystal, and I are here today to talk about our experiences with AMOS. I remember in the late 90s, as a member of Plymouth UCC, attending some of the first house meetings when Plymouth member Liz Williams, daughter of our fellow UU member Winnie Williams, was the assistant to lead organizer Paul Turner, who led the organization. I didn't get too involved back in those days. I went to a few house meetings and maybe 1 or 2 larger gatherings, such as the one happening at the end of this month. I remember feeling like I didn't have much to contribute to the conversation and was too busy with work and other things in my life. Today I'm retired, have had more experiences with a variety of issues, and realize what an impact AMOS has made over the years. My only first-hand experience reaping the benefits of a past AMOS project was from the 1999 Schools First Local Option Sales Tax for public school building renovations. I remember clearly the first year we had air conditioning in our building and not having to send students home early during that hot August weather. I can, however, see the impact of AMOS initiatives on the students and families and community members I serve as a teacher and through my volunteer activities. I've run into my students at the Lords and Skate Park, seen Let's Talk at work in the middle schools where I substitute teach, and heard about students benefiting from the Mental Health Services Initiative. Immigrant families I've assisted have benefited from open library hours and Iowa workforce programs, accessible in multiple languages. Since 2023, people with low-level convictions are not barred from Des Moines school employment like my nephew's girlfriend was a few years before that. It was AMOS's past efforts that brought all of those improvements to our community. And now I, personally, and many of us, likely, will be affected by the new initiatives that AMOS has settled on as a result of the many house meetings we held this spring. If these new efforts are successful, I may someday benefit from a silver alert system if I wander off in my old age. There may be a time when I'm away from the city out in Polk County when I need quick emergency medical services. There is no question that public schools are in need of assistance to become strong once again. Immigrants and refugees will perhaps be able to adjust and make more successful transitions to life here in central Iowa, and we will all benefit from improved water quality. Please put on your AMOS hat. Oh, thank you. Eventually, okay. Please put on your AMOS hat and take 2 hours out of your Sunday on August 30th. Join us in making our voices heard in concern for these issues. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Eileen Jackson. My pronouns are she, her. So there I was in a darkened theater, breathlessly watching my first musical, Camelot. Arthur paced in circles, musing, might for right, might for right. Not might is right, but might for right. King Arthur was about to form his infamous round table. I'm pretty sure that I was forming a foundation for my life. While Arthur was having his epiphany on stage, my little 4-year-old brain was making connections in a way I would remember for my whole life. Might for right. Might for right. Also, musicals are awesome. I tell you this to share how fundamental it is to my ideology, this idea of creating a world where power is used to protect people rather than to control or hurt people. It's why I feel like I belong in a Unitarian Universalist church, and it's also why I'm participating in AMOS, and why I hope you will too. More than 10 years ago, I participated in an AMOS house meeting like many of you did here at church last spring. It was a season of my life that was dominated by the struggles of my eldest child, Debbie, who had been given multiple mental illness diagnoses, had perpetual behavior issues at home and in school, and had had more than one run-in with law enforcement as a result. As a biracial kid with impulse control issues, it was terrifying. Our family was exhausted and despondent, particularly Debbie. Sorry. Their father and I spent hours every month, sometimes every week, sitting in meetings with school officials and therapists and caseworkers who often expected us to have solutions, but had very few resources to offer us. When they did, they came with very long wait lists. Therapists and teachers alike seemed to think that we could train their anxious meltdowns away, and a few insisted that calling mobile crisis was the only solution for us. Mobile crisis may have had a knowledgeable mental health professionals on call, but we never got to see them, as the protocol was for law enforcement to come first, and Debbie was never able to get to the next level of care through that system. We were overwhelmed with grief, fear, and shame, and our options just seemed to get fewer and smaller as my child aged. That is the story I told at that AMOS house meeting. I had told it to friends who were involved and who I knew supported AMOS taking on children's mental health after the house meetings. Our family continued to navigate our challenging story, and I watched from the sidelines as AMOS worked toward finding more equity for children with mental illnesses and their caregivers. I know that there were many stories that inspired this work. Stories from families, from teachers, and from frustrated care providers. By the time Polk County established youth-centered mental health services, my child was legally an adult, and we were navigating the eventual autism diagnosis that would ultimately shape their adulthood. But the fact that our story was heard and held meant the world to me personally. And I know it has made the lives of other Iowa children less fraught, which is nothing short of miraculous. August 30th is Debbie's birthday. They will be celebrating at their home in Vermont with a group of friends. And I invite you to join me in celebrating them and all the children and families helped by AMOS at the AMOS 30th Anniversary Convention in Clive. Come and sit at the round table that AMOS has become for me. Help us demonstrate what the power of the people used to do the right thing, might for right, can look like in Iowa.
Hi, everybody. I'm Crystal Loving. So more than 6 years ago, Ooh, I got to get myself together. My son ended second grade at home, and he spent much of third grade there as well. Like, this is so telling, right? And so, like, so many kids during that time, their worlds became very small, and his school life was different. His friend time was different. These normal routines and connections that were part of human nature were suddenly gone. And he struggled. We all struggled in some sense, but it really morphed him and us in ways we didn't understand. At first, I couldn't piece together what I was seeing in his behaviors. He was lonely, but he didn't have the words for it. He didn't know how to cope with what he was feeling, and honestly, I did not know how to help him. And as a parent, that's the worst, most painful place to be. So you want to be able to fix things for your kids, right? I need to make that phone call. I need to find the right person. I need to get the appointment. And I just need to find the way to make the things all better. And let me tell you, I'm a fixer. My kids will tell you I'm not the best listener, but I'm a fixer sometimes. So we knew he needed mental health support, but finding someone who could see him was actually incredibly difficult. And we kept running into all of these barriers and issues. He preferred a male therapist. And eventually what I started to learn was that this wasn't just our experience. Around that same time, children's mental health services in Iowa and Polk County were being restructured, some of what you just heard about. And people in AMOS were asking important questions after hearing stories of this less than ideal system that existed at the time that was in place. And it really was, what should a good children and youth mental health system actually look like? What were best practices that could get implemented? What would it take to make sure children and families around us could actually get what they needed? And while a decent system was implemented with AMOS Push, it does now include a clinician in dispatch. If you call 911, they will ask if you need mental health services, and they will now send out a mobile crisis team without an officer coming first. Yay, right? That was a big win. We came to realize, though, that a great system alone wasn't enough. It requires trained people to fill the positions. So as I was involved in the organizing work, I began to hear about other barriers families were facing. Some parents, families couldn't find a therapist who spoke their language. Others struggled to find someone who understood their culture or could represent and connect with their community. The problem wasn't simply that there weren't enough therapists, though that was part of it. It was also that the people available weren't always able to meet the particular needs of the children and families seeking help. What I initially experienced as a deeply personal problem began to look different. And this is where I'm so embarrassing going to say, I love you, Sally Buckhold, but all of my words are not in this binder. So I would like 1 minute to find my phone and finish reading them. So I'm much better with the script. Okay. So I think at this point, when I realized that this deep personal problem wasn't just mine, things were looking different. And that became actually a really important turning point for me. I didn't see it in the moment, but I can clearly see it now. Because at the time, I thought I was alone. I thought I was a parent who had a problem, a child who needed help, and a system that was just difficult to navigate. But through organizing, I began to see that my experience wasn't just my experience. Other families were struggling too, and they were often experiencing the same issues and barriers that I thought about. Some were similar, but some were actually unique. So the shortage of providers wasn't something I could solve just by making one more phone call or trying a little bit harder, right? I couldn't do it by myself. I couldn't even fix it by just having the right insurance. But it was a condition that I realized I could work together to change. And this is what I've really come to understand about turning your private pain into public action. It doesn't mean that we take something deeply personal and we make it public just for the sake of making it public. It means we have to be willing to ask a different question. Instead of only asking, how do I get my child the help they need? We can maybe reframe or also think about saying, why is it so difficult for children and families in our community to get the help they need? And what can we do about it together? This reframing can change everything. It's a step out of that isolation and instead into a relationship. And it's a shift from this really serious frustration to an actual curiosity about how can we fix this, right? There's the fixer again for you all. And ultimately, it moves us being a people who are just really trying to navigate a difficult system to people who can work together to actually change the conditions that led to that problem or that system. I've learned that systemic change doesn't happen overnight. You probably got that some from the last story. We do get wins, but it's a process. But it is a process that can change you if you let it. The journey includes listening to people who are experiencing something different from your own experience. It's building relationship. It's showing up again and again. It's celebrating small victories, learning from setbacks, and sometimes having the patience to keep working even when the results aren't immediately visible. The win that time, AMOS secured $1.8 million in ARPA funding to support training and retraining mental health therapists right here in Polk County, especially those that could fill those community needs. And that process, as you've heard already, is still happening. As lay AMOS leaders, we are still at it. In our recent House meeting campaign, many of which you participated in March 29th, we heard about people's pain, frustration, hopes, and concerns. And as we listened, not just to one story, but to story after story, 1,900 of them to be exact across central Iowa, we began to hear themes that were bigger than any one person or any one family. From those conversations, 5 issues emerged that AMOS will be moving forward to address. I'm sure they're familiar to you. I'm sure you have your own or fear or anxiety about them, or maybe you're curious on the experiences others had that led it to being an AMOS issue. But I know you are all thinking about the water that's coming out of your tap, the cancer rates in Iowa, funding for public schools. Maybe the treatment of refugees and immigrants is heavy on your mind, particularly their ability to find work and support their families. How long should it take for an ambulance to get to your loved one where you live? How long should it take versus how long it may actually be taking? And last, how about a silver alert system in Iowa? 37 other states have it. How can we not have it? So I'm going to end with the same invitation that you've already heard about. Will you stand with us? Will you come out on Debbie's birthday to help turn this private pain and frustration we hear in our community into public action by standing in solidarity for these issues at the AMOS convention? It'll be 2-ish hours on a summer Sunday, 800 plus people from across central and northeast Iowa to hear the stories on these exact issues, but also to ask for public commitment from your candidates running for state office. They will be on the stage, and we will ask them to commit to work with us to make our communities work for we the people.